Hello there, so today we're going to look at how we can export HTML from Figma using a plugin called HTML Generator. So before we actually look at it, first of all, what is HTML? So if I go to this very famous website, which is the UK Parliament website, now if I right click and choose View Page Source, if we scroll down here, all of this code here is HTML. There's a little bit of JavaScript here, but the rest of it is primarily HTML. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and is the language behind all web pages. And there's an interesting link here. So this link will actually take us to and it looks very intimidating, don't worry, but this link will actually link to a CSS style sheet just here. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet, and HTML and CSS work well together for creating web pages. So with that down, we're going to use a plugin to help us export the HTML and CSS from this desktop frame. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure it's selected, and I'm going to run this plugin. You need to download a plugin. This plugin is called HTML Generator. And this is a really cool plugin, and it exports the HTML, as you can see, HTML and the CSS. It goes into other things as well, but that's what we're primarily interested in. We have a really nice preview of our web page. So with the HTML selected, you can see that it mainly talks about classes and divs. Now, div tags are sections. So we have one big section here, and we have these smaller baby sections inside this big section. So we have the parent div tag here. So there's the parent. There's the parent. And also we have the children, which are these. So these are the children here. And they've been given names as well. So they've been given names, they have been given names of E206 underscore 11, and then 1312, and then we have the large one here, which is called 4. So this has automatically been created by Figma. And we're going to copy and paste this code into a document. So that we're going to use a piece of software called, let me just close this. So we're going to use a piece of software called Text Edit. Text Edit is a really cool piece of software. It's quite basic, and it needs to be, if you're on a Mac, it's called Text Edit. If you're on a PC, it's called Notepad. Now, Text Edit on the Mac needs to be plain. So it needs to be in the plain format. And we're just going to type in some very basic code here. So I'm just going to zoom in so that you can actually see. So if I go to View and then zoom in. And I'm just going to type in some bare bones HTML. So we've got our HTML tags. We always need to have head tags. A title. I'll call this converting. From Figma to HTML. Oops, I didn't see that. So let's sort that out to HTML. Let's close off these tags. close off this head tag. There we go. Let's put in our body tag. B-O-D. B-O-D. All right, so we have our bare bones HTML here. So you need to have closing tags. That's the big thing. That's a feature of HTML. So we've got our HTML closing tags. We have our body tags here. We have our head tags closing, and we have our title tags here. And in the middle, we want to move this piece of code. So we can copy this, and let's go into our text edit, and we paste it here. And we need to save this as an HTML document. So you can see that we're using lorem ipsum here, just like we are here. So all of this is lorem ipsum. And I'm going to save this in a folder. So file, save. I'm just going to go to the desktop, create a new folder, my web project 1. I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call this index.html. We always need to have that file suffix. And let's make sure we've saved it properly, and then click save. Use HTML. So the other thing we need to do, we need to have a link that we mentioned before. So we need to have a link that links to our CSS document, which we are going to create any minute now. So the link for our CSS document needs to be in between the head tags. So with the angle brackets, we need to write link relative equals style sheet I need to put quotations around that. Hyperreference equals, and then the name of the file that we are linking to, styles.css. Let's put that around it. All right, so we've got link relative equals style sheets. And make sure that gap isn't too small. Let's put it here. So link relative equals style sheet hypertext reference equals styles.css. Now this is quite tricky in terms of the syntax. There's a lot of quotations, there's a few equals, and it's very easy to, if you get one thing wrong, it can be quite frustrating, but that's what coding is all about. We can always check our code. So a really good source of reference is W3 Schools. So W3 Schools is a good resource where you can check and learn about all sorts of different coding. So I'm going to copy this link here because this is the link we essentially need to have. So I'm going to paste this under here just to check, and the syntax is fine. It's absolutely correct. So I'm just going to delete that one. So we can do that. We can check our syntaxes, which is good fun as well. So the other thing that we need to do, we need to link. That's the wrong one. Let's make sure I've got here. So we've got our HTML file just here. We need to have the CSS file. And we've actually made a link here to the CSS file. So let's go back to Figma. So when we go back to Figma, we can see that this is the CSS as we discussed before. So CSS is all about the styling. So it gives us the size of the document. It gives us the size of these divs here. It gives us the background color. and the positioning and the size of the font. So it's all about the size, the color, the positioning, very precise. So we need to copy this CSS code. We need to go to text edit. Let's create a new document and let's paste that in. And we need to save this as styles.css. So if we click on our document here, just behind here, we need to save this. So File, Save, and then we need to save it in the same folder as our HTML because they will work together. So here's a link here saying please link to styles.css. And if we go into our folder, which is my project, and then if we right click on here and open with Google Chrome, you can see that we have our document here. So we have our document, so we have the CSS and we have the HTML working together. So we've just exported. We go back to here, let's close this. So we have just exported, and you can see our title there that we created here. Our Figma file to HTML and CSS.